This week is Mental Health Week in Canada, and I decided to share some more vulnerable stories about my bipolar disorder journey. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Walker, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 on January 1st, 2000. And this video I called the 7-year itch. So from the year, roughly June 2000 until about 6 years later, I was on the same medication. It's a medication called lithium, and some people refer to it as the gold standard of bipolar medication. And it's, as far as I know, one of the, if not the most common medications. And essentially, I had side effects, and I just lived with it. So, I couldn't hold my hand out like this without it slightly twitching. So because of that, I'd often hold my hands under the table, or I'd be very mindful of my hands when out in public. I was often very dry in my mouth, so I was always like, sort of thing. And I was always thirsty. And with lithium, people on that medication have to get blood work every 3 months. So I had to get blood work every 3 months. The main reason for that is to monitor your blood levels, because lithium can potentially do kidney damage, or you can potentially have kidney failure. So they really monitor the levels closely. So as I say, I was on that medication for 6 years, and I guess that expression, ignorance is bliss, that's how I was. I was happy on the one hand that I wasn't in the psychiatric hospital. I wasn't having any major highs. I was having a few lows still, but nothing major. And I had these side effects, and I was getting blood work every 3 months, but I just thought, okay, that's how it is. And then at the end of 2006, I was in a natural health food store, and I picked up a magazine. I remember seeing an ad for a certain product, and I won't say the name here, but essentially it's a supercharged vitamin. And this company said that they have many people with bipolar disorder that have had incredible results. And I gotta admit, at that point in time, I was just tired of the side effects. I was tired of getting blood work all the time. And I also, overriding all of that, is I really felt like I was in this flatline state. So I was never really happy. I was sometimes sad, but I was just kind of numbed out. And my moods were just kind of like this sort of thing. So at the end of 2006, not the smartest thing, but what I did is I actually went off my lithium, and I substituted it with this supercharged vitamin, I'll call it. And I will say that I wasn't on a high dose of lithium. So anyways, I was on this medication for about 6 months, and everything was going great. I was actually starting to feel more alive. I was starting to feel more vibrant. I was starting to not feel as numbed out, and I felt energized. And the previous summer, my mom had passed away, and I'd come into a little bit of money, and I'd heard about a course coming up that was like a personal development and spiritual growth course, and that really piqued my interest. So I decided to go to that course, and that was in March of 2007. So that's where I say the 7-year itch. And this was a course that was, I think it's a 5 or 6 day course, and it was at a beautiful retreat center. And I do remember that the first 2 or 3 days, I was just so excited to be there. It felt like I was having a more expansive awareness of many things. I was growing a lot. I was really enjoying meeting the people, and loving the course, loving the location. And halfway through the course, all of a sudden I wasn't able to sleep, and I was definitely hypomanic at that point. And at the time, I didn't have any tools. I didn't have tools to correct that. I didn't have any awareness of how I could reverse that. And as I said, I made the choice to be off medication, so I didn't actually have any medication to slow my mind down. So with that course, I had to fly back to Canada through Vancouver. And when I got to Vancouver, at that point I was definitely manic, and I was in an alternate reality, I'll say. So I got my bags and I started walking out of the airport. At this point, I can't remember why I did that. And I walked to the closest gas station to Vancouver International Airport. And I'm sure I was saying and doing weird things. And the store employee, I'm guessing, called the police. So two policemen came towards me. I'm hanging out in this gas station. And in my mind, I thought they were going to hit me. So I went to kick one of them, which is really smart with cops. So, of course, they threw me down and cuffed me, and they took me directly to Richmond Hospital, to the psych ward there. And in that case, I was involuntary, because when a police person brings you in, you're involuntary. The first manic episode, I was voluntary. So I ended up being in Richmond a fairly short time. I was there for approximately a week and a half. Fortunately, I had family in Vancouver that came to visit me, cousins, Todd and Kathy, which I was very appreciative of. And, I got turned around pretty quickly. They put me on a different medication called Zyprexa. So I started taking Zyprexa, and things seemed okay again. I was disappointed to be back on meds again. But I thought, you know what, I don't want to risk having another manic episode. So after that week and a half at Richmond Hospital, I flew back to Calgary, where I was living at the time, and resumed my normal life. So this time I was on a different medication. They told me there was no known side effects. And Zyprexa, in case you're curious, there's many people in Calgary who are on Zyprexa that don't have a mental illness, and Zyprexa is very effective in having people avoid headaches. Because in Calgary, with the Chinooks and the barometric changes, quite a few people get Chinook headaches, and Zyprexa helps alleviate or avoid those headaches. So I was told that there was no known side effects, and I was on this medication with no headaches, so everything seemed pretty cool. And as I say, I was happy to get back to my normal life, and decided to ditch the supercharged vitamin and go back on traditional meds. So that was my second manic episode, and I did get a big cut on my face when the police threw me down, and I don't resent them for that. One thing I do resent, though, and I've let it go now, is when I was in the hospital, I was in the handcuffs, and there was one of the orderlies that put their entire body weight on my bent wrists behind my back, and it took me better part of a year to get that wrist back to normal. In my opinion, that was not necessary, but it is what it is. So anyways, that's something I haven't shared publicly before, and I trust that you got a little bit out of what I said. If you do know someone who has bipolar disorder, definitely consider sharing this video with them. In my experience, many people feel alone that have this diagnosis, and if there's anyone in your life that you feel might benefit from this, please consider sharing with them as well. So tomorrow I'm going to do a couple different videos about my bipolar disorder journey, and thanks again for tuning in. Take care.